Alright, I guess I should start off with how this absence from doing any sort of drug started. It was the March of this year, 2021, and my birthday was coming up. After an extremely long and tiring series of events in Las Vegas, from moving into a house with a couple YouTubers, to trying to move to a new house and having it fail, and living in a hotel for a few days, I found myself stuck in a suburban home on the outskirts of Vegas in Henderson, Nevada, until the end of the month with one other roommate from the first house. And I felt trapped, not only because I was literally trapped because I was in a gated community without a car, but I felt trapped mentally. As a result, I started to develop some serious anxiety, and I was the most depressed I'd been in a long while during that period. Even though in the back of my mind, I knew that it was just because I was in the environment that I'm currently in and I just needed to tough it out until the end of this month, I still thought that psychedelics would help. In times where I need some sort of clarity or direction in life, psychedelics has proved to help me time and time again. And luckily, I had an eighth of mushrooms saved from when I bought them at our first house, and I was waiting to take them until I had settled down somewhere again. And with everything going on, now felt like the right time to do it. I asked my roommate if he would be willing to drive us to a local nature reserve tomorrow afternoon, and I told him, I would be doing psychedelics, and he agreed. The next morning, we woke up, we went down to the kitchen, and I scarfed down the shrooms with some water. I still cannot get over how bad shrooms taste. It's the worst. I don't know if there's anything worse than it, and especially when it gets stuck in your teeth. Anyways, we're on our way over there, and I can definitely start to feel it kicking in. About 30 to 45 minutes after we arrive is when I start to peak, and I start to try and talk through what I was going through with my friend who was with me. And during my peak, I got a text from my dad, and that text said that he's gonna visit Vegas with a couple friends on the weekend of March 11th. That single text message was the biggest proponent to me going dead sober, and you're gonna find out why soon. All right, I'm not gonna drag out this story too long. I'm not gonna get into too much detail, but we went back to the house, and when I got there and I came down completely, I did feel a greater sense of peace with where I was at and what I was doing. But unlike my other psychedelic trips, this feeling didn't last long. So a couple weeks go by and my birthday is coming up, and by this point, I'd kind of leveled back out to that down bad state that I was at before I took the psychedelics. Even after taking the one thing that always seems to help me get out of a rut like that, I couldn't get out of this slump. But regardless, March 11th arrives, and my dad texts me saying he just touched down in Vegas, and we eventually decide to meet up a couple days after that. Now, keep in mind that this is my birthday weekend. I'm gonna be going out with my dad and all of his rowdy friends, which, yeah, they're rowdy people even for being 65. So I was like, all right, you know what? I've been kind of pretty much completely sober the entire few months that I've been in Vegas. It's my birthday weekend. I'm just gonna let loose and I'm going to drink. I'm actually gonna drink to the point where I get drunk. Again, I don't want to bore you with the details, but basically we played Topgolf. We went to a few casinos, drank at several different places, and I got pretty drunk for the first time in months. I don't remember much, but I do remember just how shitty I was feeling and how much I just wanted to go home by the end of the night. I was just so done with everything. I said my goodbyes. I got back around 1 or 2 a.m. I think, and I immediately fell asleep. When I woke up the next morning, I felt like absolute piss. I just couldn't do my usual daily tasks as well, and the whole day kind of felt like a blur. And I told myself, now I remember why I don't drink anymore. And it was in that moment that I realized that this had to stop. No, I wasn't a drug addict. I wasn't going out drinking every night, but I had still turned to external substances to try to figure out and solve my problems. So since that day onward, when I went out with my dad that weekend, I have been completely sober. No psychedelics, no alcohol, no weed, but I stopped smoking like a year ago. Nothing. So let's get into how this has affected my life in the past 4 months, and I want to give you some advice towards the end of the video that might help you quit these things if you are struggling to right now. First off, a lot of you might be thinking, Cole, why did you do 4 months? Why not the usual 30 days like everyone on YouTube seems to do for challenges like this? I just think you got to do this shit for months before you see a radical difference in who you are or your personality and just what you do on a daily basis. All right, so what has changed? I think moving back back to Buffalo and being in a stable place now for a few months like I have been has definitely helped with my mental health, but I do just feel more consistently happy. My mood feels more stable, and the things that used to get a rise out of me in a negative way just don't really happen anymore. Like, for instance, I really hate completing chores, but specifically chores that require me to leave my house. Like having to leave my house to go pick up groceries or other items I need. I just never have liked that, and it did bother me, but now it doesn't really bother me at all anymore. I think it's because before I was like, God damn, life's been kicking my ass this day or week, so it's time to like let those struggles and worries go by letting loose on my soberness for a day. But the root of why those problems keep arising never gets solved that way. I was forced to face those problems head first with no escape for the first time in my life for that long. Well, not in my life, since I've like been doing drugs. And because I was forced to, I had no choice but to figure out what it was I needed to do to stop feeling this way as much as I was. And like I've said, life will always give you some sort of suffering, and you're gonna be sad sometimes. Like, I still get sad. It's just that I know what to do now when it happens, and I handle it better. And that's why I'm more stable. You have to face reality in its most natural state. The state that's been given to you by your senses without some seriously mind-altering substance. Like, how many people can say they can handle their life and their problems and themselves completely sober all the time? Most people cannot. And isn't that a problem unless you have some sort of like underlying medical condition that requires you to take stuff like this? I just really wanted to get to that point of complete radical self-acceptance and self-love when I'm completely sober, and I did that. Now, as a lot of you know, I am a big supporter of psychedelics. I have a lot of videos on this. I do think they're an incredible way to treat a lot of symptoms that people have, like depression or PTSD and other addictions. And I'm very sure that I'm gonna be doing psychedelics again one day. But I really wanted to prove to myself that I could figure out and solve those life problems that I've had throughout the 24 years I've been on this planet without the need for psychedelics. Because after you've already done them a few times, what I've learned is that if you try to do them again, you're not really gonna get much out of them, or not as much. Or maybe they will, but I don't think they should always be used. It shouldn't be a requirement for big life problem solving. If you really want the most psychedelic experience of your life, then go sober, because being sober is the truest psychedelic experience of them all. So now the only question that remains is, how do you quit? I'm not guaranteeing that this is going to help you, but this is how I approached it. The question you should be asking yourself isn't how do I quit, but rather what do I need to do and how do I need to think and feel about myself to get to the point where doing those things, such as like any drug, won't even cross my mind. Basically, how do you have to feel about yourself to not want to take drugs, and what does it take to get there? What are the habits, the actions that would be required of you to live a sober lifestyle? The answer to this question is going to look differently for everybody. For me, I found that if I was fully involved with my purpose, which is making these videos, then I wouldn't have time to think about doing drugs, and I'd be happy regardless if I did them or not. And I think that is so massively important when you're trying to do this. Having a skill that you're passionate about learning that supersedes your desire to want to take any sort of drug. And if you don't have that yet, and you're still in the stage where you're trying a bunch of different things to see what clicks, or you're just trying to sharpen a pre-existing skill and make sure you actually stay on top of that skill and not on top of drugs, then you can use the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. You guys probably know Skillshare by now. A lot of self-help YouTubers talk about it, or not even self-help YouTubers. It's an online learning community with thousands of different classes to choose from, no matter what you're trying to learn or improve. They have classes on productivity, business, entrepreneurship, learning how to draw and paint and all that. Any skill you can think of is probably on there. I think it takes a lot of self-discovery through journaling to really answer those questions that I gave you as to why you don't want to be sober. And a class that I've taken in the past that I found super helpful for stuff like that was Writing for Self-Discovery, 6 Journaling Prompts for Gratitude and Growth by 𝘖𝙗𝙤𝙘𝙖. And specifically within that class, I think the work through regret part could help you if you are struggling with that. It's curated specifically for learning. There's 0 ads on the platform, which I really like. Like, I'm not trying to go on a platform for learning and just see a bunch of ads pop up to distract me. And they're always adding new classes. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial to Skillshare Premium. They're doing this until September, and then it's gonna go back to like a week, I think it was. So take advantage of this opportunity and click the link in my description. And as always, thank you to all the patrons on this channel on Patreon. This is a platform I put out exclusive videos and podcasts. You can check that out in the description as well. But that's it for this video. I'm gonna go and get out of here because you got some work to do, I think.